Welcome back to another episode of the Tracy Take. We got a fun episode today. We're going to mix things up a little bit going into the final week of the preseason. But before we start the video, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can get notified when we create new content. Like this video, comment on this video, help us out with the YouTube algorithm, and also just leave your thoughts overall on, our opinions. But Ryan, new season. It's always fun to kind of analyze some of the potential records that could be broken. But this year specifically, with the expansion to a 17-game season, it's almost some of these records are almost certainly going to be broken within the next couple of years. And there are guys that we think can break some of the records this year. And so that's what we're going to break down today. We're going to have 4 records that we're going to talk about. And Ryan, I say let's just get into it, starting off with the number one and probably the easiest one to break. Like, I'm not trying to insult the record, but Derrick Henry almost broke it
most
last
likely.
year. Adrian Peterson,
I would say most likely.
Yeah, but the single season rushing record that Eric Dickerson set in 1984 of 2,105 rushing yards is now with 17 games is pretty much all but broken. Someone's going to do it within the next couple of years, and we both agree that Derrick Henry is going to be the guy to do it.
Yeah. So my reasoning for this actually will probably take a little bit of explaining, but to me, the addition of Julio Jones to me is the reason that Derrick Henry will break this. Derrick Henry is going to see lighter boxes than he ever has in his career.
Yeah.
He has arguably the best wide receiver duo in football right now. And those guys are going to demand at least one of them to be double covered. So if you want to leave 8 guys in the box to try and stop Derrick Henry, then the Titans are just going to burn you over the top. So it's kind of pick your poison. But to me, Derrick Henry is going to have the lightest boxes he's ever had in his career. He was 60 yards away from it last year, right? And honestly, about. And so honestly, I didn't even know that until he almost did it. He did it very quietly. His running style to me is very sustainable, and I think he breaks it this year. I think he gets about 2,150 yards. So
well, it is. Not too many people were really talking about it going into week 17 against the Texans, because he was about 300 yards away, I think, or maybe a little more than that. So people thought he'd have a good game, and he was going up against the Texans. But I think he went off for about 200.
Like 180.
It was over 200 yards. Yeah, and they just kept handing him the ball, and Houston was just let him. Hey, come on, sir, go by. Hey, here's a nice open lane for you. You could just keep on going, and that's one of the reasons why I think Derrick Henry is going to do it. Is if you look at the schedule, they did win the division, so it's a little bit of a tougher schedule. But last year he had 3 200 plus 200 plus yard rushing games last year. All of them were against division opponents. 2 against the Texans, once against Jacksonville. Texans defense, you can argue, has gotten worse than last year. Yeah. Jacksonville is probably maybe a little bit better, but still no match for that Tennessee run offensive line. So, and also they've got games against the Cardinals, which are going to be better up front. Seattle's weakening up front. The Jets are another game that he can absolutely I could see just dominating, and so it's going to be a challenge. Obviously, any record is tough to break, but if you look at his performance last year, if he can stay healthy, and that offensive line is one of the best run blocking offensive lines throughout the entire NFL, I think he's going to have the easiest job, the easiest of all the records to break, in my opinion.
No, definitely. And I mean, I don't really know how much the Jaguars' defensive line has improved. I know the Colts is probably the best defensive line in that division, but I'm excited. If you're in the top 3 fantasy picks, this is a guy that I would target, like, for sure. If he's not taken first overall, so I think he'll have a really good year.
He's going to break that record this year. The only way that he's not going to do it is going to be just injury. I think that's the only thing.
Well, injury, or if the Titans' new offensive coordinator decides to take a a more pass heavy approach to the offense, and Derrick Henry doesn't necessarily see an advance in his carries. But I think if you have a weapon like Derrick Henry, it would be very silly to try and change the offensive game plan that's already been in place. So
Yeah, I think that would lead to a firing for
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
because there's no reason why Derrick Henry shouldn't see a majority of the touches, a majority of the plays. Like I think he
hmm
averaged over 23 carries a game last year. He was the only running back to have
yeah,
over. He was the only running back to have over 20 carries per game. So, and in order to break a record like that, you just have to have more touches, more opportunities to go and break off the run. And I
yeah,
mean, he could easily, I could see him putting up 300 yards against the Texans in both games because that defense is just
yeah,
miserable. So there you go. That's 600
yeah.
right there. He's a third of the way through.